apply for this, Certified Information Security Professional, or CISSP, or CISP, if you like it. Certified Information Security Manager, or CISM, if you like that. He offers a unique understanding of local and global cybersecurity business needs. Also like that he blocks out his calendar one afternoon per week to run free coding and STEM sessions for kids with code Aotearoa. I love that. I don't know if it's true. He could say that. He could have just written that down. I'll never get proof of it. But I do love it. He is the Director of Cybersecurity Consulting, Coresilium. Please welcome Dimitri Souleliac. Kind of mangled it, but...
Thanks, Jeremy. Thank you. Kia ora, everybody. Tēnā koutou katoa. No kanata hahu. No wiwi okumatua. Ke ota otai toko kainga inaini. Ko Dimitri hahu. Ka nui te mihi kia koutou katoa. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. I think today it's all about the risks you know. It's all about the risks you understand and the risks you manage. And today we will have this a bit difficult conversation together. You may feel a bit uncomfortable. But look around you, just looking in the room, the sensor, all the technology here in the backstage, all the Wi-Fi networks around us, all the technology in your pocket. Actually, as a cybersecurity professional, I'm seeing all of this as potential exposure to cyber threats, potential entry points to a system, a network, or data. And actually, I came across recently from on a study from Australia. And it's pretty much applying to New Zealand and all small business in the world. Actually, 50% of small business owner believe that they can limit their exposure to cyber risks or avoid cyber risks by limiting their online exposure or limiting their online presence. And I think it's not really good because we need to embrace technology. We need to embrace things like AI and new technology. And I think, from my experience, cyber risks could be somewhat like a roadblock to digital transformation. The other day I was talking to the CDO of a local government agency. And they are in the middle of a quite ambitious digital transformation program. And he was telling me, look, Dimitri, I think cybersecurity is quite a top priority for us. Because you know what? If people lose trust in our system, in our digital transformation, they will not use it, right? And what will happen, instead of using digital services, they will just show up in person to our offices. And this is not what we want. Take a bank, for example. The other day I was talking to my mom, and she said, I think I have a problem with my online banking app. Maybe it's compromised, I don't know. Maybe my access has been compromised. And I'm starting to receive strange calls from the bank. So I lost trust. So what I will do, I will show up in person to the branch, and I want to talk to someone, right? Because I lost a little bit of trust in technology. And this is inefficient. And this is not what we want. We want people to embrace technology, and we want people not develop a fear of technology because of cyber risks. 2 weeks ago, I was talking to the CEO of a trucking and transportation business here in Christchurch, based in Hornby. And the CEO told me, yes, it's interesting, like your cyber risk management and what you're doing. But as a CEO of a family business, I'm feeling it's a bit like a buzzword, right? It's a bit like AI, cyber. I mean, I'm just doing trucking. And for me, it's a bit of a buzzword. Because do you know what, Dimitri? basically I have nothing to hide, right? Yep. Do you have something to hide? Sometimes I ask a question to the teenagers or the kids when I'm doing Code Club, right? Most of the time, they have nothing to hide. This is the common answer. And this is kind of true. If you are an honest person, or if you're doing honest business, you have nothing to hide, right? Because I think it's not about hiding things, right? Hiding things. You don't want to keep things hidden. Maybe it's all about you make sure you have some data or information you don't want to share. It's all about knowing what kind of information as a person or as a business you don't want to share or you don't want to get published, right? And I was talking to this trucking business CEO, and I told him, look, it's not actually just about confidentiality of your data. Cybersecurity is always about availability and the integrity of your systems. Because basically, if you don't have your systems up and running, you can load the trucks, and you will have a problem. And we just continue the discussion around that. And he say, okay, now I understand. Actually, what's going on in the cyberspace, it's basically digital run raids, right? We have people, cyber criminals, breaking our door, entering our data warehouse, stealing all the data, disrupting our systems, and then asking for ransom. But he said, yeah, I'm quite a bit concerned now. But I'm a small business in Christchurch, in Hornby. Maybe I'm just not a target for cyber criminals. So in the room, who think they are a target for cyber criminals? Yeah, maybe half of you. Yeah, and the other half, and many small businesses just tell me, I'm not specifically targeted for, I'm not a target for cyber criminals. I'm not interesting. And again, this is somewhat true, because I think the majority of you in the room, you are not specifically targeted by cyber criminals. But some businesses are really targeted by cyber criminals. A few days ago here in Tepai, we had this aerospace summit. And looking at the protest outside, and looking at what's going on in the space industry, or aerospace, this is a targeted industry by cyber criminals. And I work for a few of them. And I also advising some business in the food industry, where they are targeted by activists, right? Or maybe they have more exposure, and they are specifically targeted by cyber criminals. But at the end of the day, I think any business with a bad cyber posture is a potential target for cyber criminals. You may be not a specific target, but you may be the low-hanging fruits in the tree. And you can be pretty much a collateral damage as well. Basically, what cyber criminals are doing nowadays, they go in the street, they try to break or to open all the doors, and they run quite large and wide cyber campaigns. So if you are not a target, you can be pretty much a collateral damage of a larger cyber campaign because of your exposure, because of a specific vulnerabilities in your systems. So maybe you're not a target, but you want to make sure it stays like that. You want to make sure you are not an easy target. And if you grow your business outside New Zealand, internationally, you will get more exposure. And you may be a more interesting target for cyber criminals for different reasons. And actually, outside New Zealand, and even in New Zealand, things are changing really fast. Actually, the world is getting incredibly more volatile, and cyber risks is really volatile. Basically, cyber attacks are a bit like tornadoes or earthquakes. It's really hard to predict the exact time, the location, the magnitude, and the extent of the damage of a cyber attack. And every day we discover new faults, vulnerabilities, and attack vectors. And I was talking with the chief executive of a small organization, and she had everything in place in terms of multi-factor authentication and all the security measures. And actually, she had a call, and at the same time, she received an email, a phishing attack. And on the phone, the attacker asked them to just approve, this request for strong authentication, and she did. Actually, cyber criminals are pivoting more on the human side of things, exploiting more human vulnerabilities. So I'm pretty sure you are very well aware that in New Zealand, we are both exposed to natural disaster and risks and cyber risks, right? But I'm feeling very privileged to live in a country, New Zealand, a country with the highest geopolitical stability in the world. With a score of 97.6, it's one of the highest countries with geopolitical stability. And when, like I'm doing, if you sell overseas and you say you come from New Zealand, people will be really reassured, right? Because we are a trusted nation. But also we are a trusting nation. And this is maybe why people are clicking on phishing links sometimes. But the world is changing really, really quickly. And I think with such high score here, when you go outside, expand your business, everything is getting a bit worse, right? In terms of cyber attacks, in terms of cyber risks. So if you expand your business globally, and you are looking at selling overseas, you really want to pay attention to the geopolitical context. You want to understand that we have partners here on the right-hand side, but we have also clients on the other hand, right? And there is tension, there is changing situations. And I think we have a new government. We are post-pandemic, and I think New Zealand is not neutral anymore. 2 years ago, I was sitting in a room in the Canterbury Plains, in a factory. I was surrounded by automation engineers. And I was talking about deploying a detection and response technology on all their computers, on the production lines. And they told me, look, Dimitri, I think we will not let you deploy anything on our OT, operational technology network. Because do you know what? We prioritize reliability over security. And say, oh, it's the same thing. It's not, we should not oppose the two concepts, right? We are working for the same goals. But I say no. You can't deploy a third-party software because it's too sensitive and it's too sensitive to disruptions. And the technology I'm talking about, it's CrowdStrike. So they were somewhat right, because we know what happened then. So the world is getting incredibly complex. Even for cyber professionals like me with an IT background, things are getting increasingly complex and interconnected, hybrid, OT, IT, physical. And actually, if you want to explain the CrowdStrike incident to a board or to a senior leadership team, what you say, basically, it's a digital supply chain risk. So if you have a vendor in your environment that can push software codes or update real time on all your computers without even knowing, if they have a problem, you have a problem. So this is a digital supply chain risk, and you want to manage that. I think it's been roughly 10 minutes I'm talking about cybersecurity. And you may start asking yourself, am I a target? Maybe am I already compromised? Maybe cyber attackers are already in my emails, or some maybe already in my network. And actually, it's quite ambiguous. Cybersecurity is quite a gray zone of responsibilities. You're never sure you're 100% secure, right? This year, back in February, I spent 3 months in Canada, talking with a couple of CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, in the energy sector. And they were told by the government, it's the same in New Zealand, in all the Commonwealth countries, they were told that an APT, an advanced persistent threat, was targeted specifically the energy sector. It's called Volt Typhoon. It's a sort of a malware compromising energy companies and networks, just waiting to be detonated at a later time in case of a conflict. So they were told to investigate, to search for the indicators of compromise. But it's not an easy exercise. It's quite hard to know exactly if you are compromised or not. It's quite ambiguous. So I think we are quite living in a VUCA world, VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. But what can we do, right, to manage that? What can we do in a VUCA world? Would you cross the road without looking on the side if someone coming, right? I think hope is not a strategy. You really want to manage cyber risks as a business risk. And because if you manage cyber risk as a business risk, what will happen, it will encourage adaptation. I mean, your business will be able to adapt. And your business will open new opportunities as well, especially if you're looking at scaling globally and meet like more higher requirement for cybersecurity. And also it will improve your resilience. The board can train and the board can be ready to face this kind of new risks. And it will be a competitive advantage as well. And what I'm loving the most is the skill development, because if you train your people, they can go back to their family with some skills to share with their family, their parents, their kids, right, to get more secure online. But it all depends what kind of business you are running, yeah. So if you want to start, and say you are a startup, what you want to do is to see cybersecurity a bit like something within your software or product development lifecycle. The good news is you are building on modern platform, and you want to embed cyber and data and privacy from the very beginning. With small iteration, right, and cybersecurity integrated, basically you can achieve security by design. And I'm talking frequently to startups, and I came across a few startups who are doing MVP, minimal viable products. And I told them, you just want to do minimal viable security. So what is minimal viable security? Basically, is limiting the data you collect and you store. So say you are launching a new medical health, a medtech product, you want to limit the data collection. You want to limit the health data you store. Because you know what? You don't have to protect what you don't have. And actually, retrofitting everything could be quite expensive. For my own business, I bought a solution, a SaaS solution, and I decided to host it in Europe. And I came across all the GDPR and the complexity. It was a pain. But now, because I did all these steps before, the SaaS solution I bought, I know the company can't legally and won't train their AI on my data, right? Because it's hosted in EU, and it's a bit compliant by design. So it was a bit of a journey, but now I can scale, and I'm really confident with that. You don't want to reinvent things as well. When it comes down to encryption, authentication, identity management, you have many things built in modern platforms. So you don't want to reinvent. If your startup is a success, you maybe become a small business. And if you are running a small business, I have a really good news. There is plenty of best practices, guidance, tools, even for free you can use. But the difficulty with running a small business is knowing where to start and a willingness to take some time apart, right, to put in place some security measure. And when I having discussion with small business owners in their 40s, 50 or 60s, it's a bit like their health, right? Health. High concern, but low priority. Maybe I can wait for exercise or eating my veggies or having this skin cancer screening, right? But it's high concern, but we have so much priority to do. So just keep it simple. Keep it simple. Pick 3 actions. The New Zealand NCSC, the National Cybersecurity Center, a couple of weeks ago, they published the Cyber Uplift Action Plan. Or you have the CERT NZ, Critical 10, in Australia, Essential 8. Just pick a couple of actions, right? Start now, and don't overthink it. We all know what to do in case of an earthquake, right? Drop, cover, and hold. Keep it simple with cybersecurity. Train, back up, and plan. Basically, you train your people, you back up your data, and you make sure they are protected, and you plan for the worst if things should happen. Yeah. It's a little bit different if you are running a larger business. Because for a larger business, it's more like a sort of a continuous effort, right? It's not a permanent secure state. You can achieve like security and stay like that. It's a bit like a requirement of doing business, like health and safety. I'm actually, at the moment, I'm doing a cybersecurity assessment for a crane and lift manufacturing company that looks like to expand a bit globally, buying companies around the world. And it's a good start to do an assessment. Because when you can like add a score to your security posture, and you can then report to the board or to the CFO, they feel very reassured that you are in control, and you are measured against a framework or a standard. And then you can define like a maturity target. And you can making sure to have this discussion with your CFO to measure the efficiency of your cybersecurity and making sure the money is allocated at the right place. You also want to fix your vulnerabilities, and you want to pay attention to your digital supply chain. So maybe if you can do pen testing, right? Penetration testing. But it's all about making sure you have enough money provision to fix your vulnerabilities. The point of penetration testing is not finding vulnerabilities, it's to fix them. And you want to maintain your cybersecurity over time. You want to maintain with an incident response plan and doing some exercise. And you maybe want someone at your business just managing that, like hiring a CISO, a Chief Information Security Officer. But I think it's a bit hard nowadays to hire cybersecurity professional or CISO. They are scarce, they are expensive. So maybe you don't want just to look at growing a huge cyber team, right? You maybe want some responsibilities, maybe someone managing it. But you are not looking at growing your cyber team, you're looking at growing cyber in all teams. My name is Dimitri. I'm doing cybersecurity consulting on an international scale, and really happy to take some questions. And if you have some questions you are not comfortable to ask today or want some more time, feel free to book a 30-minute with me by scanning the QR code. Kia ora. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dimitri. Some interesting stuff in there. I've got a few questions. You can still time to pop a question in there, or indeed, if while I ask these first couple, if you have one, feel free to put your hand up if you want to ask Dimitri one. Dimitri, would you consider best practice to use SaaS products to host your data? Not sure if I said SaaS right. Is it SaaS? Do you say SaaS? Let's move on.
SaaS, yeah, that's good. Actually, again, it's a bit like what I explained around the digital supply chain. What you want to do is to send them a security questionnaire and assess their security posture. And I think maybe look at their certification as well. But beyond the ISO 27001 and stuff, you may want to ask some good questions. Maybe not sending maybe not like sending a 100 questions questionnaire, like using complex framework, but maybe start with a few good 5-10 questions about data protection, about backups, about incident response plan, about breach disclosure and stuff like that. But depends the size of the SaaS product as well, or the SaaS company. Yeah.
So it's a bit grim, but I guess it's a good question to ask. Would you regard the pager and walkie-talkie blasts in Lebanon as examples of cybersecurity attacks? Would you class them as such?
Yeah, right. I was almost use this example today in my presentation, but I decided not because it's really, really scary and very upsetting. Actually, it's not really a cyber attack. It's more like an act of war. It's sabotage, right? But what's interesting, it's to explode pagers remotely, they have to compromise the whole supply chain, right? To basically to add explosive in the pagers. And then they had to somewhat compromise the network to send a message to all the pagers at the same time to get them explode. So it's not like if a vulnerability has been exploited in the pagers. So you are safe. I mean, your phone batteries will not explode with a remote code execution or whatever. No. It was prepared before in the physical supply chain. But because it was triggered through a communication network, there is some cyber aspects in the attack. So I will say it's not a cyber attack, it's more a hybrid attack that leverage a supply chain compromise, physical supply chain compromise, and leveraging as well network compromise. Yeah.
This is a good one. A few upvotes for this. In your experience, how many cyber attacks are specifically targeted at businesses versus just random attacks?
Or I think 80% are more untargeted. I mean, it's like sort of probing all the businesses for specific vulnerabilities. So the first stage of a cyber campaign is just like scanning all the businesses, all the networks to find vulnerabilities, or running at scale phishing campaign. So 80% are not really targeted. And then the information is passed to another team who can run maybe more targeted campaign. So like business compromise with like a very targeted cyber attack from the beginning, it's quite rare. But 80% start with maybe a bit of probing, so you want to get off the map, basically, yeah.
How confident are you that cloud providers are capable of deflecting these large-scale cyber attacks to secure our data?
Yeah, right. So if you look at large scale, actually, cloud providers are really good at mitigating large-scale attack like denial of service, right, DDoS and stuff like that, because they have huge capacity. But then when it comes down to a data breach or stealing your data, I mean, it's all about shared responsibilities. Because so most of the business I came across with a cloud apps compromise, it's because of security misconfiguration. Because the security feature were here in the cloud, but not properly configured. So I think it's a shared responsibilities between your business as a user and the cloud provider to provide you the right things and the right advice to leverage it. Yeah.
Again, a few upvotes on this. What's the most common exploit for New Zealand's small businesses?
The most common things is really like the human side, like phishing attacks. I think the most likely entry point in your business, it's a phishing attack by email. Yeah, especially small business. Yep.
And do you think those phishing attacks are going to become bigger than the technical exploits in upcoming years?
I mean, as I said, it's a bit like the V in VUCA, like it's quite volatile. So we can see large cyber campaign around phishing attacks. And then because people raise awareness and people activate MFA, multi-factor authentication, then cyber criminals move to exploiting technical vulnerabilities in other campaign, right? And then they gain some knowledge and then they can move back to a more human attack. So it's quite volatile. But again, they are always looking for the most easy path. So technical vulnerabilities can be quite exploited quickly. Like if you are not patching your firewall or your remote access solutions. Yeah. So.
Of course, pretty much no presentation today avoids talking about AI. Someone's asked, are you seeing AI increase the amount of attacks globally?
No, not really, actually. What's happening, AI could be leveraged by cyber criminals to craft a very good phishing email, or it can be leveraged for various kind of things. So it's a tool for them as well, but it's not increasing massively cyber attacks, but maybe it's a trend to monitor, because in the future we may see more digital supply chain compromise because we have an AI component within the supply chain. So, yeah.
Anything to consider when selecting an identity and access provider?
Sorry, what was the question?
What to consider when selecting an identity and access provider?
Yeah, so for IAM, Identity and Access Management, I think it's not about the product. It's more about the process. So if you work with a provider, first, before jumping like in a shiny product for identity management, governance, or whatever, you want to make sure you have the right advice to adjust your process in terms of identity provisioning, onboarding, offboarding, cross-boarding, right? So I think to choose a provider, you want a bit of consulting as well, and making sure they are not just selling a magic product, but they are also selling the advisory before that. Yeah.
That's an interesting one. Someone says, do you have a recommendation for the best app, in your opinion, to hold passwords?
Oh, right. So actually, I'm really agnostic. I'm not recommending any specific apps. But what I found really interesting in New Zealand, we have this consumers magazine, Consumers NZ, and they actually assess the password management app. So Dashlane, LastPass, KeyPass, 1Password, whatever. Just look at what consumers did, because what they did, they actually tried the password managers apps from a consumer point of view, from like an individual, and say, is it easy to use? Is it easy to actually deploy, right? So yeah, recommend the recent New Zealand consumers study around that. Yeah.
I kind of like this one, because you set aside that time and you talk with the young people and get them into coding and the rest.
Yeah.
How do you prepare young people to confidently exist in this cyber world with all these threats?
I think they are pretty confident. Yeah. I have a 10-year-old boy, and actually, he's really confident with technology. But I think the young generation is a bit more aware of privacy risks. I think it's all about making sure they are equipped, to balance all of these things. But it's really hard to educate young people for the world because the world will be changed when they will be bigger. But so for young generation, I will say it's more about raising awareness. It's more about alerting them without alarming, right? Yeah.
It's a fine line to tread. I've got 2 kids, 13 and 11-year-old, and yeah, it's an awkward conversation. And they tell me, shut up, Dad. That's basically the response. I'll finish with this question. Is pickpocketing common near electric streetlights in Paris?
The electric what?
Is pickpocketing quite common in Paris? You had to be here for our last session to understand that.
Yeah, it's quite common. If you look at the density of the population in Paris, I mean, you have more chance to get robbed in your pocket than in Canterbury, absolutely, but yeah.
It's no Reefton, that's for sure. Give it up for Dimitri Souleliac. Thank you so much.
Thank
you. You can sit yourself down, Dimitri, and I'll have a little bit of a chat about what you've just done if you're interested. Yep. A little bit of a recap. Beautiful greeting in Te Reo Māori. 2 beautiful languages. I mean, Māori spoken with a French accent. Even my knees were buckling. It was pretty cool. It says, wherever there is data, there's a cybersecurity risk. Sort of like wherever there's a public swimming pool, there's a risk someone's gone to the toilet in it. That's my takeaway. What is it? Limit your online presence. Talked about a couple of weeks ago, talking to that trucking firm here in Canterbury, and who basically said to Dimitri, hey, you bloody security, family bloody tricking, bloody mate. And they're basically saying, I have nothing to hide, I'm not a target. And Dimitri's saying, well, think of it as digital ram raids. And I thought that was quite a clever way of saying, yeah, that's a little bit what it's like. I would like to know what the computer equivalent is of a Mazda Demio, and that may be someone calling to tell me right now. Look forward to that information, if you can pass that up. You may be the low-hanging fruit. The second time low-hanging fruit's been mentioned on this stage. I don't know if it's some sort of running theme. Is it an alarm? Do we need to get out? Is it? No, it's all right. Okay. Do you want me to answer it? I'll gladly talk to them. All right. I talked about those. Put up the slide. Talked about volatile and showed that picture of a tornado just outside Reefton. And then he talked about the things to do with volatile, uncertain. New Zealand's a trusted nation and also trusting, high level of geopolitical certainty here. And then gave that nightmare story of being surrounded by automation engineers. Woo-hoo, worse than dinner with white men in suits. Volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous, VUCA. Very easy acronym to take away, VUCA. Also the same as marriage. Volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. So you talked about if you're having a startup, secure by design, built to scale, don't reinvent. Oh, wait. What is it? Is it a civil defence emergency? It's a medical alarm. Are you a doctor or are you in trouble? That might be my favourite moment from this whole conference. Medical alarm, he built the app, great. He's talked about, he said minimal viable protection, Dimitri talked about. You don't have to protect what you don't have. And I've done the same with my dignity. So that was my little parallel there. Small business security for many of these people. He said, think of many of these people as like health, high concern, low priority. Obviously need to raise that priority. But interesting, he said, for a small business, here's his advice, pick 3 things, start now, and don't overthink it. And that is the same way I approach sex. Pick 3 things, start now, don't overthink it. Different for larger businesses, assess, remediate, and maintain. Definitely not sex. No maintaining, no assessing. And then he put up the QR code so you can book a session. Dimitri, on time, under budget, great presentation. Thank you very much. Give him a round of applause.